In order to understand the climate that Brian Clough managed in, we have to understand the events in Britain leading up to 1975. Whilst Clough was employed at Derby, there was a feeling of gloom in post-war Britain.
In the build-up to Clough becoming Forest manager in 1975, unemployment exceeded 1 million in the UK. Inflation also reached 24.2%, the second highest since records began.
During the 70s, the RAA was at its height. The London Hilton Hotel was bombed by the RAA, killing 2 people and injuring 63. A year later, 12 bombs were detonated in London. The Midlands was also affected, with 21 people killed and 182 injured in an explosion at 2 group houses in Birmingham.
Brian Clough took over Derby in 1967 whilst they were stranded in England's second division. 2 years later they were promoted to the top division. After developing the club, 3 years later Derby had won the best prize in English football. Clough left in 1973 due to disagreements with the Derby County owners. He joined England's best club at the time, Leeds United. He endured his most unsuccessful stint, which only lasted 44 days.
At the time, Nottingham Forest were considered one of the biggest underachieving clubs in English football. Clough was appointed manager in 1975. A year later, Forest won promotion to Division 1. What happened next can only be described as a footballing miracle. They won Division 1 in their first season, an achievement only measured by a few other clubs across history.
Clough improved on this achievement by winning the 1979 European Cup final and retained it a year later, placing Forest amongst the European elite, securing Nottingham Forest and Brian Clough's place in history.
Because of this, his achievements at Derby may have been overshadowed by his feats at Forest, although in Clough's autobiography he considered his biggest regret as leaving Derby. This causes tension between Forest fans and Derby fans alike. We sought to investigate Clough's true legacy. We managed to interview the former Nottingham Forest chairman, Brian Appleby, who gave us a unique insight into Brian Clough's reign at the club.
So, was it you that brought Clough on? Was Clough there when you became...
No. We were in a bad state as a club, and Clough had just left Leeds in turmoil with the player power got rid of him, and we were going down and we were in a mess, and Clough's name came up, and by and large the committee were violently opposed to him, particularly the then chairman, because I wasn't chairman of the club. And I said, we're in such a mess, we can't get to a bigger mess. And he may be just what this club needs. And he came to see me at home, and we discussed terms in my home then, which was in Alton Village. My wife didn't want to meet him because she thought he was an obnoxious person. And after about an hour being there, she was like a lamb in his company. She fell for him. Right.
So what was he like? Did he come across as quite a brash person?
Do you want to know what he was like, really?
Yeah.
Right. He was volatile, very volatile. He was charismatic. I remember once being at St Pancras Station, we'd been to watch a game together, and within a minute we were surrounded by what seemed to be thousands of people. He was that sort of person. But his public persona on television and so on was not really the man. He was a very compassionate man, cared deeply for underprivileged people, handicapped people, children. He was a very different man privately.
Do you think he would have, just to close up as well, do you think he would have achieved the same impact if he stayed at Derby, or do you think?
Who knows? You just don't know. The problem was he and the chairman erupted. Their relationship broke down completely. I mean, it wouldn't have been difficult to do that with Brian Clough on occasions, you know, but it just didn't work with Derby.
We asked Forest and Derby fans a series of questions concerning Clough's career and legacy.
What do you remember about Brian Clough?
I remember him as a supporter, and actually met him on one occasion.
Yeah.
When I was a schoolboy.
What was he like when you met him? Do you remember? Or?
Incredibly friendly and polite gentleman. He gave me a Trevor Francis comment before he gave Trevor Francis the comment.
What was it?
It's slightly twisted, but my dad used to take me to watch Derby training during the school holidays, and used to get their autographs on photographs that I collected. And I went up to Brian Clough and said, called him Mr. Clough, so Mr. Clough, could I have your autograph please? And he said, with manners like that you'll go far.
In his heyday, he was the best manager in the world.
What makes you say that? Why do you...
Well, who else has gone to so many cup finals and won them and brought Derby up from the gutter, you know what I mean?
Having not been born for the majority of Brian's managerial career, my first-hand memory of him was limited at best. However, growing up, my main memory of him portrayed through the media was his success through Derby County and Nottingham Forest. His achievement of getting both clubs promoted from League One and winning the Division 1 titles within 3 seasons with Derby, and 1 season with Forest was unheard of then, and has not been emulated since.
How important is Brian Clough to your club?
Well, he was incredibly important. I mean, he made us into a household name in terms of football. I mean, 2 European Cups is an incredible achievement. And I mean, that's why he's got his name over the stand.
Absolutely vital. They always have been a traditional football club, but they would never have had the success without Brian Clough and Peter Taylor as a partnership.
So you don't think they would have been as successful without Brian Clough?
No doubt that the 70s, late 60s and the 70s.
That's brilliant.
He is Nottingham Forest, isn't he? That's why I like, they have the green jersey after him as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
He was most important. Yeah. When he took over at Derby, just trying to think, he was in Division 2. Yeah. And it was with him and Peter that got a side together. I think one of his first signings was Colin Todd and Roy McFarlane together. And with the existing side that the players that they'd got, they was a formidable side. Yeah.
Which club do you feel he belongs to?
In my opinion, he will always be more celebrated at Nottingham Forest. His achievements there outweighed those whilst at Derby. Not only this, but Clough's issues with drink escalated whilst at Nottingham, and winning so well despite this made the period even more unbelievable. Despite the fact that both clubs have memorials for the manager, I feel that he belongs to Nottingham Forest. His success to that degree whilst at the club will not be emulated to that level again.
It's with Forest, clearly, because just because of the achievements. I mean, you can't beat 2 European Cups. I mean, that is remarkable for a little club like Forest. I mean, we're a little club.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
It's hard to say.
He was at Derby first, if you lay claim that way. He'd probably have more success over a longer period with Forest, but Derby was the start of it all for him. And Derby supporters often think what might have happened if Sam Longson had had his paddy and fallen out with him if he'd have stayed at Derby. Who knows, but that's conjecture now.
Well, he was more successful at Nottingham Forest, wasn't he? Got 2 European clubs there. But it was because Sam Longson at Derby, obviously they fell out.
Yeah.
And he was obviously sacked.
I think the biggest regret, I think the quote from him at the end of his book is his biggest regret was that he couldn't stay at Derby. Would you agree with that?
Yes, that's quite true. But then he was successful at Forest, then, wasn't he?
So, yeah.
Nottingham Forest, all the way.
Yeah. Any reason for that?
Well, I think he's him and his son.
Yeah.
Is best, in Nottingham.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Especially what his son played here and managed here as well.
How would you describe Brian Clough with one word?
So, what if you could just to sum things up? If you could use one word to describe Brian Clough, what would it be?
Charismatic.
If you could use one word to describe Brian Clough, what would it be?
Excellent.
He created a utopia at Derby.
Yeah.
Utopia.
Utopia.
If you could use one word to describe Brian Clough, what would it be?
Legendary.
Although Clough's biggest regret was leaving Derby, in regard to our investigation on Clough's identity and legacy, our study indicates that Clough had a stronger affiliation with Nottingham Forest.